Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So alarm bells at Wizards are once again going off because leaks are back at it again. They think that they stopped the leak. You know, they put, they patched the hull of the ship. I don't know what metaphor we're using. Sure, they patched the hull of the ship, and they're like, we're good to go. All right, we got, the buckets of water out, and then, oh no, over here, about a day later, we got more. So, yes, we have an absurd amount of leaks that came out over the weekend. I'm just trying to catch up right now as quickly as I can, trying to make this as digestible as I possibly can. So this, I don't believe, is all the leaks that are out so far, but these are the ones that I've been able to digest so far. A lot of exciting ones. Let's jump into them. And speaking of digesting, maybe that was why this word was on my mind, Devourer of Destiny. There you go. I will mention really quick that these are custom versions of these cards. They are somewhat blurry, somewhat grainy, somewhat weird angled shot images for some reason. I don't know. Whoever decides to, leak these images just does them in weird ways sometimes, apparently. And so these are custom versions of the card with custom art as well. The actual versions of the card, Future Mitch. Yes, hey, it's Future Mitch. Hi, Future Mitch. Make sure you edit this properly. At the end of the episode, you actually put the actual images just at the end of the episode, okay? Okay. Hopefully Future Mitch remembers that. Anyways, Devourer of Destiny, a 6/6 Eldrazi, and my apologies for any mistakes on any of these cards. Again, trying to digest them quickly. I'm already seeing that the wording at the very end just goes over the line slightly. I'm sorry. For 5 colorless, you may reveal this card from your opening hand. If you do at the beginning of your, there's 2 ofs there. First upkeep, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may put one of those cards on top of your library, exile the rest. That's spicy. When you cast this spell, exile target permanent that's one or more colors. So, this card, again, well, is one of those cards where, what are they? Oh, gosh, they're Eldrazi's as well. Chancellor. The Chancellors. There we go. Chancellor of the Forge, Chancellor of those. Those ones are like, hey, if it's in your opening hand, you get an extra free value. Again, first upkeep, look at top 4 cards of your library. You get to kind of set the top of your library. That's nice. On top of that, being able to exile a permanent when this is cast, that's also very nice too. Colorless decks don't have the best removal out there, obviously, since they have the lowest pool of cards to pick from. That being said, obviously, this can see play in colorless decks in general, Eldrazi decks, and I guess if you're looking for like really combo-centric decks that care about setting the top of your library when the game starts, and you're just really hoping that you hit this in your opening hand, which is a very low percentage of the time, but you never know. It's kind of like one of those fun, like, oh, I got it in my hand. Cool, I get extra value out of it. So, and I guess one maybe that plays with exile too. Other than that, mostly just an Eldrazi tribal kind of deck card, or one that's like, oh, okay, colorless, that needs removal. There you go. Keep in mind, again, it is cast. It is not ETB. Keep that in mind. Next up, Thriving Skyclaw, a 3/2 cat dragon for 4 mana in red. Flying, enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. Whenever it attacks, you may pay 3 energy if you do put a counter on it. And I do shorthand sometimes +1 counters to discounters because it's easier to say. It seems like energy is going to be a thing. This is a common card, I believe, if I did that correctly. So it's not all that impressive, all that impactful, but yeah, I guess in other formats it probably is. Like, in limited, it's like, cool, I got a 4/2 flyer for 4 mana. Cool, or 4/3, I guess, after you attack with it. But yes, energy kind of decks out there are going to become more and more of a thing, I believe, and ETB make 3 energy is a good amount. Next up, Dog Umbra, an aura that costs 1 and a white with flash and enchant creature. As long as the other player controls a enchant creature, it can't attack or block. So with that, it's basically pacifism, but better, essentially. And they started doing this, what was it, last year when we got, like, a strictly better pacifism for the first time? Like, just strictly better. Not first, I guess, but very, very obviously better. And then all says is otherwise, Dog Umbra has Umbra armor, which, did they change totem armor? Let me know in the comments below. Did they change totem armor recently? Because I think that's the same thing, right? If a enchant creature be destroyed, instead remove all damage from it, destroy this aura. I don't remember totem armor being changed to Umbra armor, but apparently it has for some reason. I do not know why. If you know why, let me know in the comments below, please. But yeah, I'm assuming that's the exact same thing, basically. So being able to either protect your creature at instant speed for 2 mana, that's really good. Or, really good that it's that flexible. Or take another opponent's creature essentially out of the equation when it comes to attacking or blocking. Obviously, they can select evade abilities, but very flexible. And again, at flash speed, that's really, really good. So, not for every deck out there, but obviously for aura type strategies out there, or ones that maybe are Voltron, ones that want to protect your commander in this way or that way. Dog Umbra seems quite good. Moving on. Ocelot Pride, a mythic, and my goodness is a mythic effect. A 1/1 with first strike and lifelink for a single white mana. Ascend. So again, if you've got the City's Blessing, if you've got 10 or more permanents, essentially, you get the City's Blessing for the rest of the game. Very, very easy to meet that requirement in Commander, especially with this. At the beginning of your end step, if you gained life this turn, create a 1/1 cat creature token. Then if you have the City's Blessing, for each token you control that enter the battlefield this turn, create a token that's a copy of it. Okay. So, yeah, this is quite good. Basically, like, I mean, it's a low to the ground. First up, it's got a relevant creature type for cat decks out there, which typically have some life gain synergies in there, too, with some cats out there. I'm thinking about that one that's like, you get 2 cats, and they're 1/1 lifelinkers, or +1 lifelink. Anyways. This being able to say, hey, all right, I'll make creature tokens for you every single one of your turns as long as you gain life, and then also, which you're going to get the City's Blessing, obviously, if you're playing the game of Magic or the game of Commander, and you're also making tokens with this and other things as well, you get to double up every single token that you made that turn, which is pretty crazy. Again, I don't think I typed this in wrong, but I don't think it said creature token specifically, so obviously that pairs incredibly well with any kind of tokens. I mean, I guess food tokens would be pretty apparent here, where those actually can gain you life, so just sacrificing that food token for 2 mana and tapping it can get you that 3 life, which would trigger this at the end step. That being said, yeah, treasure tokens are pretty crazy these days. And, yeah, that could just double those up. Double up creature tokens, obviously. Just doubling up all your creature token production for essentially just 1 mana, and as long as you've got life gain synergies in the deck. Pretty crazy. So, yeah, obviously, life gain synergies, life gain strategies, go wide strategies that do have some life gain in there. Although, keep in mind that obviously this does have first strike and lifelink. It's just a 1/1, though, so you can't really count on this surviving combat, really, but you maybe can if you have pump effects, anthem effects, or an opponent literally just has a bunch of 1/1s in play, or just 1/1 in play, I guess, because they could team block it. Yes, keep that in mind, though, but being able to essentially double up your tokens for this low, that's a pretty crazy effect. So, there you go. Moving on. Evolution Witness. Obviously, a callback to, well, another kind of witness. A 2/1 elf shaman mutant for 2 and a green. Pay 1 and a green, adapt 2, which means that if it had no counters on it, you put 2 counters on it. Whenever 1 or more counters are put on it, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. So that's pretty impactful. It is specific to, I mean, obviously, this is like a playoff Eternal Witness. This is a very impactful thing for decks that have a good amount of permanents that might hit the graveyard. If you have a permanent, heavy deck and one that has a lot of counter synergies to it, yeah, you can do a lot of work with this. I mean, adapting it that first time, it's like, okay, cool, I paid 2 mana to get something back. Is there all that worth it? Like, for a total of, 5 mana for a 3/2 to get 1 permanent back out of your graveyard? Probably not. But again, if you've got other counter synergies, if you've got maybe proliferate synergies, ways to get extra counters on this quite easily, like Loyal Guardian, just all your creatures get a counter on your combat, right? If you got your commander, something like that, then cool, you get that for free. Just, okay, I get that permanent back out of my graveyard. Awesome. Next turn, I proliferate it. I got a permanent out of my graveyard. Great. Being able to use and abuse that can definitely be very good in permanent, heavy, counter-based synergies. Next up, Jolted Awake, a sorcery for a single white mana. Choose up to 1 target artifact or creature on your graveyard. You get 2 energy counters. Seems like energy is going to be a big theme, apparently. Then you may pay an amount of energy equal to that card's mana value. If you do, return it from your graveyard to the battlefield, cycling for 2. So it's interesting that this combines cycling in there as well. I haven't seen too much cycling. And again, I probably should have said this earlier. Everything that I'm talking about this episode is a leaked card. So they are not officially confirmed by Wizards yet. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. Thank you. Okay. So basically, a cycle synergy, I like that a lot. I like having cycling in Magic. Gives us some flexibility. Obviously, Alec, one of my buddies, absolutely loves cycling. And the more options for cycling, the better. I don't know if this will make the cut, though. Basically, a kind of like low-to-the-ground reanimation effect in a way. Either for an artifact or a creature. Again, it has to be 2 mana value or less to get that back with this. If you don't have any other energy synergies going on. If you do have other energy synergies, obviously you can get a lot bigger things out there. And if you don't have anything going on that you want to get back out, but you need another card, yeah, cycle it away. It's an interesting effect. And again, we shall see kind of all the different kind of ways energy plays in this set. Next up, Guide of Souls. A 1/2 human cleric for a single white mana. Whenever the creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and get an energy counter. That seems really good. Again, especially since there's not, and we're getting more, obviously. There's not too many ways to make energy consistently. This is a really good way to do that. So energy synergies, we absolutely love this. But also, again, it doesn't say non-token creature. There might be a combo in here somewhere. I don't know. There's like that one like weird combo that works with like the 3 different machine things that make energy. Maybe in there somewhere. Regardless, yeah, being able to just get a lot of energy and life gain too, like that is very relevant. This is essentially like another soul sister in a way, but specifically for your creatures. So whenever your creatures come into play, you're getting life as well, but also getting energy. That seems really, really good. On top of that, whenever you attack, just with anything, apparently not even with this, you may pay 3 energy. When you do, put 2 counters on and a flying counter on target attacking creature. It becomes an angel to other types. That's interesting. I mean, I don't know what kind of angel benefits you really care about, unless like, I don't know if you'd be putting like this in an angel tribal deck, really. Maybe one that has a lot of like life gain synergies potentially, but maybe I guess like a changeling tribal, lord's tribal deck that cares about, I don't even know. Like making it an angel really doesn't have all that big of an impact. Maybe I'm missing something here. Like, yeah, there's other angel-based synergies, but would you just like throw this in a deck with a bunch of random things that aren't angels and then a bunch of angel tribal effects and be like, well, I'm going to turn them in angels with this? Wouldn't count on it. But yeah, it's a very interesting effect. Being able to at least, get counters and that flying counter on them is very, very nice. Being able to give some evasion and give some extra power to your creatures is really nice. Yeah, basically go wide synergies can definitely consider this. Any kind of life gain decks out there obviously consider it. Energy decks can obviously consider it too. It's a very interesting like soul sister / energy producer. Interesting. Very interesting. And again, token producers, token kind of decks, token strategies can consider this as well because it doesn't specify non-token. Unless I'm mistyping that. But yeah, at the end of the episode, there will be the actual, pictures of cards that again might be a little bit blurry, but that's okay. Moving on. Triton Wavebreaker, a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard for a single blue mana with Bestow for 1 and a blue. Again, Bestow's and not older mechanic. I guess it's a little older. It was from Theros? Original Theros, I think? I actually had my Glade Cover Scout Boggles deck with, I think Boon Satyr was in it. Boon Satyr! Yeah, anyways. Bestow! As long as it's a creature, it has prowess. I guess I didn't read what Bestow was. If you cast a spell for its Bestow cost, it's an aura spell that a creature comes in. A creature gets it, it's not attached to a creature. Prowess means whenever you cast down a creature spell, this creature gets +1 till turn, and a chain creature gets +1 and has prowess. So essentially, this either can just be the creature that is a 1/1 with prowess, or it is an aura that enchants a creature, gives it +1 and also prowess. It's an interesting card. I mean, it's pretty low to the ground, like a spell slinger type of synergy-ish might want to consider this. Like, if you cast a bunch of non-creature spells, you can pump up maybe your commander with this kind of a thing. Obviously, if it's attached, by giving your commander prowess, there's not too many ways to give prowess to something. Other than that, though, like, merfolks, wizards, both relevant. I mean, low to the ground kind of deck might want to consider it, too. Enchantment decks might want to consider it. It's pretty specific on what it wants to do, though, but, yeah, I'm sure there's some places for it. Yeah, I mean, like One Punch Man decks could definitely consider this, like, giving an additional, I think if you have multiple prowesses, that would probably stack, too. So, yeah, interesting for sure. Moving on. Brain Surge, the big brainstorm, I guess. Instant for 2 and a blue. Draw 4 cards and put 2 cards in your hand on top of your library in any order. I think this just illustrates just how powerful Brainstorm is in certain formats out there. I mean, Brainstorm, again, costs a single blue mana and nearly does this, right? I mean, this is draw 4, put 2 on top. Brainstorm is draw 3, put 2 on top. So, like, technically, you're just getting 1 extra card drawn that you are keeping, though, right? You're going up 2 in card advantage versus up 1, although, obviously, you're losing the card that you're actually using, Brainstorm or Brain Surge. That being said, this costs 2 extra mana to do so. Top deck manipulation kind of strategies, definitely can consider this one. Being able to get certain cards on top of your library is very nice. Also, kind of like Brainstorm, and this is kind of a thing where there's a debate in Commander, where, like, how good is Brainstorm? Some players, I think it's one of the best cards of all time in Commander. Other players might not. Like, it is very good, in my opinion, if you have a good amount of ways to shuffle your library. Like, if you don't, like, I mean, if you got a good amount of fetch lands or whatnot, good. If you don't, it's not all that good of a draw spell, especially early on in the game when you're just like, okay, yeah, I brainstormed turn 1. I drew 3 cards. I replaced 2. All right. I'm going to draw those 2 that I just put back on top, even though I might not want them, might want to get rid of them, unless I play, like, again, a fetch land, tap, crack, shuffle my library, okay? This, again, if you have a bunch of fetch lands, again, if you're playing Brainstorms and you love them, great. You might want to consider this one as well. If you're not, then maybe, yeah, again, decks that really care about top of the library manipulation, care about what's on top of the library. Certain commanders out there like, hey, attack, what's on top? Look at it, and if this happens, that kind of thing as well. Or Miracle-type decks out there. Other than that, I mean, I guess you can really play with like Teferi's Aegis Insight type effects, Thought Reflection, doubling up card draw can definitely really take advantage of this. Obviously, be like, okay, I draw 8, put 2 on top still. Yeah, it's quite nice. So it's a very interesting card. But again, not as good as Brainstorm, but still in a similar vein to that. Moving on. This one, actually, I did not make a custom card version of it. My apologies, MTG Jet Design, if I did not find the way to make prototype on there. But I couldn't find it, so I just put this one up here because it was not grainy. It was not too grainy to just do this. So Frogmite Enforcer is a 4/4 artifact creature Frogmire for 7 mana. Prototype for 3 and a red. It's a 2/2. So again, you can cast a spell with the different mana cost, color, and size. Keeps its abilities and types. So essentially, you can cast it for cheaper if you need to, or technically more expensive maybe, because this does have affinity for artifacts, which is interesting because it's like, gosh, like there's the frog one with affinity. I'm already messing this up. And then also Mirror Enforcer kind of combined the two. Frogmite, there we go. So it just combined the two essentially, but it also made it red for some reason. Don't know why. Anyways, yeah, affinity for artifacts. You can have a 4/4 for essentially free quite easily with the right strategy out there. Obviously, artifact heavy strategies, if I could talk. The prototype cost is going to be more so like if you don't have, enough artifacts to really like get this for free out, obviously, you can get this for essentially probably 1 mana. If you have 3 artifacts to play, 1 mana is pretty easy to actually get this out for a single red. Pretty interesting card. Again, if you're utilizing those type of like affinity for artifacts type cards in your deck already, like cheating out artifacts for free, you probably want to consider this one. If not, maybe not. Because otherwise it's just like a simple 4/4 that does nothing else, or a 2/2 that does nothing else. Moving on. 6. Okay, here we go. This is maybe one of the shortest names in Magic history. Let me know in the comments below if there's a shorter one than this. I can't think of anything that's shorter than 3 letters, though. Pretty crazy. So I assume that this is 6 of Renin 6. A 2/4 legendary creature tree folk that costs 2 and a green. Reach. Whenever it attacks, mill 3 cards. You may put a land card from among them in your hand. As long as it's your turn, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. Okay, so this is quite spicy. So, I mean, how much does reach help you? It's not bad to have reach, obviously. Being able to block flyers, that's nice. Attacking, milling 3 cards, be careful with that. Or sorry, milling 3 cards, be careful with that because obviously you have to, again, whenever this attacks, it's not like the previous one we talked about, like whenever you attack. You actually have to attack with 6, put it into danger in order to actually get that effect. Early on, probably that much of a problem. Like, you're going to be able to swing at someone and probably survive with 4 toughness. That being said, later in the game, obviously, you're going to need either some pump effects on this to make it really hard to take out, or like indestructible, or a way to get it through in combat, some unblockability, essentially, or other forms of evasion. Usually flying might be good enough just to like get it through on one player, so keep that in mind. That being said, yeah, I mean, that is a nice effect. Like, mill 3, again, if you've got graveyard synergies, which this just basically gives you, that's very nice. There are certain like triggers that might happen off of milling cards too. And then also some card advantage built in there as well, getting a land from among those cards into your hand. So again, if you happen to hit a land off the top 3, which chances are pretty likely, again, like let's say most decks I build have around like 37 or so lands, so that's more than a 30-year deck. So off the top 3, you're bound to hit 1 land at least, most of the time. There's going to be times where you whiff too, but you know what? That happens. There's also going to be times where you get 3 lands and you get your choice. So getting a land in your hand is very nice. Not only set yourself up for your land drops, but obviously, and with this kind of deck, you want to probably run plenty of lands. I mean, 40 plus, maybe, I mean, quite a bit more than that, even maybe, depending on the build. It depends on, how much you really want to be drawing into lands, but lands equal card advantage in a way, because as long as it's your turn again, non-land permanent cards, it's very specific, non-land permanent cards in your graveyard have retrace. Retrace, and I think I've got a card example here in a little bit, just to show off that does have retrace to make sure I don't mess it up. But basically it is, you can basically discard a land from your hand and pay the casting cost of that card in your graveyard to cast that card, essentially. And from your graveyard. And it doesn't like exile or whatnot. I mean, I guess this doesn't really apply to that because like these are going to be permanent cards that come into play. So it's not like instant sorceries were the other example that I'll bring up here in a bit. You can't cast those with retrace, obviously, with this. That being said, there's some weird ways to play with instant sorceries with this deck as well, which is kind of interesting. It's a very powerful effect. Essentially, your graveyard becomes an extension of your hand pretty much entirely. As long as you have, again, permanents in your graveyard that are non-land, and you have lands in your hand, you're paying basically just discard 1 land, pay the actual cost out of a card in your graveyard, and you get to play that card again. This is a crazy amount of card advantage. There are probably some crazy combos that you can pull off with this. I mean, there are definitely some, but Again, these cards are brand new to me as well, just going through these, and I had time to put together, a quick take around this one with cards that work well with it in my budget, and maybe outside of my budget as well. But basically, yeah, I didn't have the time to really come up with a specific combo that works well with this. So if you do have a combo already, let me know in the comments below what that combo is. I'm sure there are some combos. Essentially, as long as you've got lands in your hand to discard, if you've got, a permanent that you can, get in play, maybe sacrifice, get back to your graveyard for value, do it again and again and again. There's some pretty crazy things that you can do with this one. So, yeah, it being limited to mono green is probably a pretty good thing, but there are still some pretty crazy aspects to this card that I think are really exciting. And again, we really haven't seen, I don't know if we've seen any commander that really mentions retrace. Let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong on that. We've got other ways like unearth, and stuff like that you can play with your graveyard, or flashbacks or commanders that give those kind of things too. I don't know if we've seen a commander with retrace, so that's pretty interesting. I mean, that gives retrace, I should say. It's a really cool mechanic. I like that they're exploring it further, and yeah, there's some very powerful things that you can do with it, and we'll get into that right now. So again, on this episode, I just talked about some leaks that, again, have not been confirmed, so keep all that in mind, please. I'm about to be talking about the quick take cards, the cards that work well with 6. If you are interested in this commander, check out that card list link in the description below. Do not, unless your playgroup is okay with it, and you're like, hey, I'm just going to proxy this commander, are you okay if I play with it before it comes out or whatever, and I'll pick up these cards? Cool, as long as they're okay with that. And again, you probably should clarify that, hey, if it was fake, can I still play with it? Cool. If not, maybe just bookmark the tab and be like, okay, I'll go back to those cards later when the card's actually been confirmed, which Wizards probably won't do until actual spoiler season comes around. And then they'll be like, wow, no one's ever seen this card before. Although they did have that article a little while ago where they're like, hey, we recognize that leaks are happening, so here's images of all the leaks. And it's that's nowhere near all the leaks. I don't think they actually said exactly that, but they were acting like, well, people were asking for the real images, so we're like, here you go. And then they're like, but here's some spoilers too. It was confusing. They haven't released images since then, so I don't know. Maybe they expected that they would just be able to close the leaks off, and they haven't. Regardless, we're going to be talking about the cards that work well with this. Keep that in mind. And then later in the episode, again, I will include all the images from these cards that were showing up on Reddit. Again, you can just see their grainy loveliness. Okay, now let's move into the quick take. So, first up, okay, and again, I did say that we're going to be going through the budget buys first, the cards less than $1, but first up, let's talk about a retrace card just to make sure I get this right. So again, Spitting Image, a really cool retrace card, one of the most popular ones out there, I think. Retrace, let's just read that part. You may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a land card in addition to paying its other costs. So again, typically we saw this on, I think mostly instants and sorceries, really, but basically you would discard a land, you get to cast this again, this cost is 4 Simic, you pay that amount, and you get to play it. And it stays in your graveyard, essentially. I mean, you're casting it, but then it goes back to your graveyard. So it doesn't exile. Like a flashback type card would just exile and go away. This does not. Obviously, 6, our brand new potential commander, says, hey, it's just non-land permanents anyways, so it's not like you're exiling, making a token copy of them. Kind of not Unearth. What's the other one? Anyways, not like those, or with a finale counter on it. You get to keep that in play, which means that, again, let's say you've got a way to sacrifice it, you can get it back to your graveyard, and then retrace it again, and then retrace it again, and then retrace it again. So there's definitely some crazy potential with that. Speaking of which, Mishra's Bauble. Okay, I am a huge fan of Baubles, of course. Wayfarer's Bauble, my favorite card of all time in Commander. Mishra's Bauble, though, another good Bauble. An artifact for a 0, tap, sacrifice it, look at the top card, target player's library, draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So, do we really care that much about looking at the top of someone's library? It's not a bad thing to do. I mean, look at the top of our own library and be like, okay, cool, I know what I'm going to be drawing. Or okay, cool, I know it's going to be a land, so I can swing with my commander and know that I'll get a land off the top of my library. Or look at the top of an opponent's library and be like, oh, that's scary. Hey, everyone, they've got a Wrath of God off the top of the library. They've got a Wrath of God. So, anyways. But the important thing here is this is a 0 mana draw spell. I mean, it is a delayed draw spell, but it is a 0 mana. Again, if it just didn't say that first part, just said tap, sacrifice, draw card to be next turn's upkeep, this would probably still see play, because that is the important part. This would definitely still see play. So, with this card, though, it turns every single one of your lands in your hand into basically cycle for free. Draw a card. Draw a delayed card. Because essentially, again, with this commander, you play this, you tap, you sacrifice it, you draw a card at the next turn's upkeep. So it's a delayed draw still, but you're going to get that card. Then you have, let's say, 5 lands in your hand. Discard a land. get this back onto play for free because it costs 0. I still cast it technically, so you get like whatever cast triggers you might have as well from other things out there, or ETBs as well. And then all of a sudden, you tap, you sacrifice this again. Maybe you got some sacrifice triggers too. And then also you draw another card at the next turn's upkeep. Then you do it again and again and again. Basically, you can cycle through like all of your lands, which is pretty crazy, and then just draw however many cards that is if you're going about that. So this is a very, very, very good card with this kind of a synergy. And yeah, there's a lot of other ways you can play off of that. Moving on. Crawling Sensation, I just want to point this out as well. Champ for 3 mana and green. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may mill 2 cards. Again, milling cards is a good thing with this commander. You want to get things in your graveyard because you're basically extending your secondary hand. Whenever one or more land cards are put in your graveyard from anywhere for the first time each turn, boo! Create a 1/1 green insect creature token. So this one does have a limitation again for the first time each turn. Wizards, I don't know if it needed that requirement, but that's okay, a restriction. That being said, these kind of additional benefits that you get from just discarding lands, again, from anywhere, graveyard from anywhere. So that counts milling and also discarding. So you can get a good amount, of insects out in play that you can play with in a lot of different ways, I'm sure. Turn Timber Sower. 3/3 Elf Druid that costs 3 mana. Whenever one of our land cards are put in your graveyard from anywhere, create a 0/1 plant creature token. This one does not limit you to once each turn. Okay, so essentially, again, with this one, again, it does say 1 or more, but again, with this like retracing, you're discarding 1 land at a time. So you discard your land, you play that thing out of your graveyard for free, not for free, but it's cost, and then you say, oh, okay, cool, I also get a 0/1 plant. Cool, I want to play this thing now too. Discard a land, do that as well. So these kind of like retrace benefits are quite nice. This one also has another benefit for this kind of a deck, which is very important. Pay a green, sacrifice 3 creatures, return target land card from your graveyard to your hand. An amazing synergy with this. Because, hey, first of all, I mean, you're making creature fodder with this, which is nice, but also there are going to be certain creatures that you do want to sacrifice. And we'll talk about some of those here in a bit. Because, again, like let's say as an ETB or an LTB, you get it into play from retracing it, you get that great ETB, you sacrifice it, or you get that LTB, whatever it is. Some have both. We'll talk about one here in a little bit. You sacrifice them, it's back in your graveyard. You can replay it by discarding a land, paying its cost. And this, of course, gives you lands back out of your graveyard to your hand. There's a lot of other cards out there that do that as well, getting lands back out of your graveyard to your hand. Talk about some great ones here in a little bit. Eternal Witness. This one is interesting with this kind of a commander because this is a great ETB. And it actually can help you, again, kind of get around one of your commander's restrictions in a way. A 2/1 Human Shaman for 3 mana enters the battlefield. You may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. So, again, with this commander, you can only retrace, again, non-land permanent cards. That being said, this is a non-land permanent, but it can get you back other cards out of your graveyard. It can get you back lands if you really want to, I guess, one at a time, but it can also get you back really powerful instants and sorceries. Again, non-permanents, non-land, yeah, non-permanents, I guess would be the word, right? And so being able to get those back, you can do some pretty crazy things. I'm sure there's some combo-centric things you can do with that as well. A really interesting card with this kind of a deck. Next up, ETBs. Of course, in an LTB, Solemn Simulacrum is the poster child for ETB LTB. Enters the battlefield, leave the battlefield. 2/2 Golem for 4 mana, enters the battlefield. Basically, rampant growth, go get a basic, but it'll play tapped. When it dies, you may draw a card. So you get a benefit on the way in and on the way out. So being able to get this in play, sacrificing it, you get both benefits. You're essentially rampant growth plus card draw for, I mean, again, if you keep retracing it, discarding a land, you get to ramp, and you also get card draw and paying 4 mana. That's going to be really good, especially if it's paired with other things as well that gives you other benefits. Again, maybe when creatures are coming into play, maybe when they leave play, etc., etc. Moving on, speaking of additional benefits, you can even get those out of your sacrifice outlets, like Evolutionary Leap. An enchantment for 1 and a green, pay a green, sacrifice a creature, reveal cards to the top of your library to a big creature card, the card in your hand, the rest of the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, green, specifically, outside of some ones we'll talk about here in a bit in the pricier picks, does not have too many free sacrifice outlets. What I mean by that is just like, you don't pay anything, you just sacrifice the creature like Viserys here, and you get that for free. That being said, with this, paying a single green mana to sacrifice one of your creatures, get it back in your graveyard, which is probably where you want it, so you can replay it again to get that ETB or LTB again. Then being able to just get cards off the top of your library until you hit a creature, get that right in your hand for some amazing additional card advantage. Yeah, that's worth the 1 mana. So this can just generate you an absurd amount of mana, kind of like cycling through your deck, essentially, getting all those creatures out in your hand and being like, okay, cool, I'm ready to go. So it can be quite good. There's also some other kinds of sacrifice outlets that work in different ways that you might want to be considering. Grafted Wargear is actually a sneaky free sacrifice outlet for you. Equipment for 3+2 or +3/+2. When it becomes unattached from a permanent, sacrifice that permanent, equip 0. So with this, it's very simple, very effective. If you have 2 creatures in play you want to sacrifice, let's just say one that you're okay with losing and one that you want to sacrifice, you attach it to one, and then you're like, okay, cool, I move it to another. I have to sacrifice the one that I moved it from. It's a free sacrifice in that way, but again, you need a certain number of creatures in play to actually make this work. If you just have 1 creature in play, it's not going to work. And obviously, you might not want to attach this to your commander because your commander is pretty valuable, and you're not going to be like, okay, cool, I attached to my commander. Oh, no. I want to get on that creature now. Move it off my commander, sacrifice my commander. Oh, no! Maybe you're okay with that, depending on the situation, but again, think outside the box sometimes with these sacrifice outlets when you're in certain colors that don't have... I mean, green's got a decent amount, but again, not many that are free. Perilous Forays, one that, oh my goodness, is so worth the cost. Jam for 5 mana, pay 1, sacrifice a creature, switch your library to a land card. They basically untype on battlefield, tap, then shuffle. Okay, that is so good. So being able to, again, get value out of those creatures that you are sacrificing, getting them back into play very easily, very effectively by simply discarding a land, all of a sudden helps you ramp now for 1 mana at a time. So, like, your creatures become kind of like rampant growths. So you can even, if you've got things set up properly, if you've got, you know, maybe, I'm not going to say like a combo synergistic strategy, but if you want to use and abuse effects like this, you could consider including certain creatures that maybe have a free cost, kind of like an Ornithopter, or ones that like give you mana back when they enter the battlefield or die, like a Cathodian, those kinds of things as well, or ones that make treasures. Being able to essentially be like repeatedly use this, as long as you've got lands in your hand to discard, you're basically like discard lands to ramp for 1 mana. Yeah, that's very, very, very good. So this can be absolutely crazy. Speaking of crazy, Nylea's Intervention. Choose 1. Search life for the X land cards, reveal them, put in your hand, then shuffle your library, or deals twice X damage each creature with flying. Again, you're in green. We just talked about a way to ramp an absurd amount. You've got absurd amounts of ways to ramp very quickly, very effectively, very efficiently. Great. Put a ton of mana into this, and all of a sudden, go tutor for a crazy amount of lands. Again, any kind of land doesn't have to be basic. Get them into your hand, regardless, with that being like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I've got 10 lands in my hand now. Great. I'll Mishra's Bauble 10 times or whatever. Again, you're just giving yourself, essentially every single one of those cards is like a ticket, a free ticket to be like, oh, okay, cool. I can get access to a card out of my graveyard. And that is a very, very, very powerful thing. Obviously, more simple ways like Yavimaya Elder, which kind of combines a couple things with this. Yeah, when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for 2 basic lands, reveal them, put in your hand, then shuffle your library. Typically, this is like worse than like, say, like a Farhaven Elf in most decks, because Farhaven ramps you. This does not. This was much more popular back in the beginning days of Commander. People like, I get lands. It's like, okay, good. But yes, being able to hit your land drops is very nice. But also with this, obviously, being able to just fill your hand with lands is huge, because now you can use that for retracing again and again and again. You can also pay 2 to sacrifice this, draw a card if you really want to. Moving on, Abundance. If you draw a card, you may instead choose land or non-land. Reveal card, stop your line to a card of the chosen kind, put that card in your hand, reveal the cards in the bottom of your library in any order. With this, you can kind of guarantee what you're going to hit in a way, again, either land or non-land. So if you actually say, okay, I've got a card in my graveyard that I really want to be able to get back and really want to retrace, I don't have any lands in my hand right now, and I'm willing to exchange the possibility of getting another non-land card up the top of my library. Instead of doing that, I just want to play that card. So I will just say land, I'll get a land, and then I can discard that for the retrace. So essentially guarantees, as long as you have a land in your deck, it's going to guarantee that you can do that. I just want to make a little quick point on this, just in case you ever run in the situation with this card in play. This is also like a mill preventer. If someone actually mills you out and you have this in play, you don't lose for drawing an extra card because this replaces your draw. So you're just like, okay, I choose land. Well, I didn't hit a land, even though I don't have a deck. So just keep that in mind. This actually prevents you from milling out and losing in a way. Next up, Keening Stone. Mass Mill. I was going to say Mass Ramp. Mass Ramp is great, but Mass Mill is really good in this deck as well. Artifact for 6, pay 5, tap. Target player mills X cards or X number of cards in that player's graveyard. This is huge because, again, your graveyard is an extension of your hand. Kind of like Muldrotha in that way a little bit. But yeah, being able to just extend your graveyard and making this just massive thing can be amazing. So basically being able to double up your graveyard size and then again, and then again, and then again is really good because you're essentially just kind of like, in a way, like tutoring for cards because you're just filling up, or not even tutoring, but like filling up like a secondary potential hand with a lot of ammo essentially, and then being able to discard lands to again get access to 1 out of, let's say, 40 cards or whatever's in your graveyard. That's absolutely huge. Keep in mind though, it's a little risky to do this as well because you're 1 Bajuka Bog away from like losing your graveyard, your second hand, and all those cards in it. So yes, mill yourself a good amount to give yourself access to cards, but also maybe be careful with how much you mill yourself. So 1, you don't mill yourself out, and then 2, also you don't just lose access to all these amazing cards as well. But you know, if it happens, it happens. Prowler's Helm. Just want to point out a card like this as well. Equipped creature can't be blocked except by walls. This is basically unblockability, essentially. And I don't know why someone in the comments, please explain to me why Wizards took out the word unblockable. Like, they now say, like, can't be blocked. Like, I feel like unblockable makes sense. Like, I don't know. That was a keyword I never understood why they changed that one. Regardless, this is basically unblockability unless you happen to be playing against 3 players that are each playing Arcades the Strategist wall decks. Then it's not unblockable. But for the most part, this is, yeah, you're going to get through on at least one opponent because walls are not that common in Commander. So keep that in mind. Obviously, changelings still work with that too, but most of the time, this is basically your creature cannot be blocked by anything. So your commander being unblockable can be huge because, again, your commander does not have evasion. And giving it perfect evasion or near perfect evasion like this is great because you can consistently ensure that you're able to swing through, get that trigger from your commander, which again can provide you with great, extra card selection out of your graveyard with that milling, and also additional lands potentially in your hand too. But now let's move on to the pricier picks again. Cards outside of my budget, more than $1, but might be within yours. Altar of Dementia is a fantastic one and maybe one of the best upgrades that you can add into the deck. It's kind of like $9. Good. Wizards reprint it. My goodness. Artifact for 2. Sacrifice a creature, target player, mills cards equal to sacrifice creature's power. That is a very powerful effect, a combo-centric effect in some decks out there, but just very, very good with this kind of a deck. I mean, again, consider this strategy. Even with like Sad Robot, which just has 2 power, right? You get Sad Robot out. You sacrifice it. You mill yourself too. Now, not only, again, are you getting it back in your graveyard, so you can actually access it again by retracing it, but also, again, you just, ramped, and then you also got to draw a card, and you milled yourself, too, to fill your graveyard further with more potential retrace targets. Not targets, really, but cards that can be retraced. There we go. So this is a card that can help fill your graveyard. Again, your second hand is a free sacrifice outlet, again, in the way that you can activate it as many times as you want, as long as you have creatures to sacrifice, which you want to, and it keeps getting you access, again, to those ETBs, those LTBs, and more cards as well. It's absolutely huge. Speaking of huge, though, Ashnod's Altar. Artifact for 3. Sacrifice a creature, add 2 colorless mana. Colorless. This is an old version of it. It's been, Oracle texted at this point. But anyways, basically, sacrifice creature, you get 2 mana. Lovely. Absolutely lovely. That is a massive effect, a potential broken effect, a crazy effect. You can do some crazy things with this. I mean, again, consider any kind of a creature. Let's just say Ornithopter, if you're going to go in that kind of a combo-centric potential build. If you have Ornithopter, you discard a land, essentially, to get it back out into play, or to cast it for free. It costs 0. You do that, you get into play, you sacrifice with the altar. You gain 2 mana. You discard another land. You gain 2 more mana. You do it again and again and again. It's kind of like all your lands now in your hand are basically ritual effects in that way. Obviously, this isn't going to play that way all the time, depending on your build, but yes, even just sacrificing any of your creatures to get their ETBs again, to get their LTBs again, getting mana back can be absolutely massive for you. Phyrexian Altar, basically the exact same thing, except slightly different. Sacrifice a creature, add 1 mana of any color. So whereas Phyrexian Altar is twice as much mana, it's both colorless. This one helps you fix your mana into, probably green, obviously, with this kind of a deck. So keep that in mind as well. Again, very, very expensive. Next up, Greater Good. One of my favorite sacrifice outlets of all time, which at one point was somehow budget-friendly. Now it definitely is not. I mean, it wasn't at first, and then it got reprinted a couple times, dropped it down, and then I was like, yeah! Oh, no. Really quickly, not budget anymore. Enchantment for 4 mana, sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to sacrifice creature's power, then discard 3 cards. That is a huge effect with this kind of a deck. If you have certain creatures, especially ones that have more power, this can be incredible. Basically, you are just like, okay, I discard, or I sacrifice a creature, let's say it has even just like 4 power, okay? I draw 4, discard 3. I'm filling up my graveyard, which again is great for this kind of a commander. I'm also potentially getting more cards I actually want to play out of my hand, and also getting more lands that I can discard to retrace things out of my graveyard. While also, again, ensuring that I have that cycle going on where I can get creatures out of my graveyard, play them, get their ETB, get their LTB, whatever it is, sacrifice them, do it again and again and again, because retrace is very repeatable once you're set up properly. So this can be absolutely huge. Next up, Birthing Pod. Again, one that actually is not repeatable, and one that actually is not free. Very, very cheap to do so, though. It's a very good card depending on your build, especially, again, if you have maybe more of a combo-centric build, or you have certain creatures that you really want to build around. Pay 1 in a Phyrexian green, tap sacrifice creatures, which life for a creature card, converted mana cost equal to 1 plus the sacrifice creature's converted mana cost. Put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate only time you cast a sorcery. This is absolutely huge, being able to just sacrifice any of your creatures again. Not for free, but being able to, like, chain up. Like, pod chain up is kind of where the phrase came from. But chain up from one creature to another, to another, to another, getting more and more value out of this, and again, getting the right creatures out of your deck. Urza's Bauble, again, the kind of like not opposite of Wayfarer's Bauble, not Wayfarer's Bauble, Mishra's Bauble, but again, another one that works incredibly well, but just hasn't been reprinted. With this commander, artifact for 0 tap, sacrifice it, choose a card at random from target player's hand, look at that card, draw a card at the next turn. So again, Mishra's Bauble looks at top library, this looks at hand cards. Cool. I mean, like, yeah, I guess if you sacrifice this enough time, you can look at someone's entire hand if you get lucky enough, really. But yeah, this is, again, another way, more importantly, to delayed free draw with your lands, essentially. Again, discard a land, play this for free, tap, sacrifice it, draw a card, next turn's upkeep. Cool. Keep doing that again and again and again. Really huge when you get one of these out there. I mean, if you've got other ways to sacrifice artifacts too, like the One Ring could be really good with this kind of a deck. I mean, this is good like with a ton of decks out there. This is a crazy expensive card for a reason. They really push this one. Ledger artifact for 4, indestructible, enters the battlefield. If you cast it, doesn't say for your hand, you gain protection from everything until your next turn. Getting your upkeep, lose 1 life for each burden counter on it. Tap burden counter on it, then draw a card for each burden counter on it. You're really not losing a lot of life with this. I mean, even if you are, it's like 1 life for 1 card at the most, and that's amazing. Other times, like, you're not being punished right away when you draw that card. Again, it's like on your upkeep. So if you've got ways to sacrifice this, you just play it. Protection from everything. Cool. All right, I sacrifice it with my artifact sacrifice outlet, or like Claws of Gix. Is that the one that's like sacrifice a permanent? There's a lot of ways to sacrifice things outside of creatures too. Sacrifice this, get into your graveyard, retrace it with your commander. Cool, you got protection for everything again until your next turn. This is very usable and abusable because, again, I believe, and correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong on this, but I believe you are just casting out of your graveyard with retrace, so it's still cast. So because of that, you are getting that effect. So, yeah, that's a very powerful effect, especially with a card draw engine pretty much attached to it. Avenger of Zendikar, another card that you definitely want to consider if you've got the budget for it, $1.83. 5/5 elemental for 7 mana, enters the battlefield, make a 0/1 green plant creature for each land you control. Landfall, whenever your land is battle for your control, you may get a counter on, it is a may, I guess, on each plant you control. You probably pretty much always want to do that. So this is basically make a massive army, essentially out of nowhere. And maybe not so much out of nowhere, though, if it's in your graveyard and you keep replaying it again and sacrificing it again and replaying it again and sacrificing again. This would be a very, very good one to chain with Greater Good because, again, of that 5 power. So, yeah, a very good effect. Make sure you're considering, again, those cards that have good ETBs and good LTBs as well. If you are really going heavy in ETBs, Panoramica, of course, is great. If an artifact or creature in the battlefield causes a triggered ability of opponent control to trigger, triggers additional time, doubles up all those ETBs for you. Yeah, that can be absolutely massive, again, for your artifacts and creatures. So make sure you're considering something like this. And, yeah, Whisper Silk Cloak. Equip creatures unblockable. There we go. There's that word. Again, you used to have unblockable. What's confusing about unblockable, Wizards? Why did you change it to can't be blocked? I am so confused as to that. It doesn't matter all that much, but, like, you made a lot of keywords since then for things like, again, and can't be the target of spells or abilities. You changed that to Shroud, but then you made unblockable longer. Why? Unblockable is very simple. It's just, it can't be blocked. It can't be blocked. Why is it not just it makes sense, unblockable. Okay, I need to get off that. Anyways, equip for 2. This is a crazy good card. Hey, my commander, which I really don't care about targeting myself most of the time because this one isn't one that you're like, okay, I'm going to Voltron it. Maybe you do. I don't know. And like, you're like, I'm going to Voltron. I need to keep targeting with things. No. So I don't care about targeting myself. You can't target it, and now it's unblockable. So you can't block it, and I can keep swinging with it to get that extra value out of my commander. Yeah, it's a good card. But now as this episode is coming to a close, first up, Future Mitch. Yes. Make sure that you put the card images, even the grainiest ones, whatever, after this, okay? Okay. Awesome. Hopefully Future Mitch remembers to do that here in a little bit when Future Mitch edits the episode. Regardless, if you are interested in these cards, again, make sure you check out that card list link in the description below. Again, I urge you, please, take everything I've said in this episode with a grain of salt. There are leaks. They are not officially confirmed from what I have seen, and nor will they be officially confirmed most likely until spoiler season actually starts. So, with these cards, again, if you are interested in 6, which seems like a very interesting commander, again, I really like Retrace being part of a commander ability. I think that's really cool. Make sure that you, again, ask your playgroup first if you're like, hey, are you okay if I, like, proxy this commander and play with it? And, like, even if it's not real, still play with it because I'm planning on buying these cards for it. They say, yes, great. If not, maybe hold off on buying those cards until it's actually confirmed to be a real commander. Maybe have this bookmarked and go for it then, okay? But yeah, make sure you're staying tuned to this channel for even more exciting quick takes, spoilers, and most definitely leaks. There are definitely more leaks out there. I'm just still trying to digest all of them. I'm still trying to get to all of them. There's a lot to, like, just open up things this morning on Reddit and being like, oh my gosh, the leaks. The boat has sprung, yet another leak. Wizards trying to patch it over here, trying to patch it over here, and it just keeps coming. So yeah, make sure you're staying tuned to this channel. And of course, as always, thanks again, and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support.